All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're stepping into the shadows to uncover the mystery of a truly ancient, armor-plated creature. We're going to be exploring the biology, the behavior, and honestly, the devastating human crisis that's actively threatening the survival of the Indian pangolin. It's this wild story where evolutionary marvels crash head-on into a modern-day tragedy. So let's break the whole thing down.
So meet the Indian pangolin. Scientifically, it's known as Manus crassicordata. But what you really need to know is that this animal is an absolute master of the shadows. It's a solitary, mostly nocturnal marvel that literally spends its days completely hidden away from the world. We are talking about a creature that digs deep into the earth, holding up in burrows that can go 2.5 meters underground. It really only pops out when the sun sets, just using the cover of absolute darkness to go about its life.
Now, before we really unpack its biology, which is fascinating by the way, we kind of have to stop and ask a pretty sobering question, and it's one I really want you to think about. What do you think is the most illegally trafficked wild mammal on Earth? You're probably thinking of elephants for their ivory, right? Or maybe rhinos for their horns, or even tigers.
But actually, the answer is the pangolin. Out of every single mammal on the planet, the pangolin holds this really tragic title of being the most trafficked. And a huge reason for that is its armor. The pangolin is literally the only mammal on Earth completely covered from head to toe in these overlapping scales. Honestly, it looks almost like a pine cone that somehow sprouted legs, or, a tiny little dragon.
And what's truly fascinating is what that armor is actually made of. These scales are incredibly heavy and dense. They actually make up a full 20% of the pangolin's entire body weight. But they aren't made of bone, and they aren't rock. They're made of keratin. That's the exact same protein material that makes up your own fingernails, your hair, and yeah, the horns of a rhino.
But beyond the armor, this creature is just a biological marvel. Get this. A single pangolin can consume a staggering 70 million ants and termites every single year. 70 million! They are obligate insectivores, which essentially means bugs are pretty much all they eat. And because they have this absolutely massive appetite, they act as crucial natural pest controllers in their ecosystems, just keeping insect populations totally in balance.
So how exactly do you catch that many insects? Well, they use an anatomical adaptation that is just mind-blowing. To make up for the fact that they have completely toothless jaws, the pangolin comes equipped with this highly specialized, extremely sticky tongue. And here's the crazy part, this tongue actually grows from deep inside its chest cavity. Not just its mouth, its chest. It can extend over 40 centimeters. To put that into perspective, the tongue is literally longer than the pangolin's own head and body combined. It acts like a sticky whip, reaching way down deep into termite mounds to just pull out its meals. Okay, but wait. If they don't have any teeth to chew those 70 million insects, how on earth do they digest them? Well, because they can't chew, pangolins swallow small pebbles and rocks as they forage. Literally, they eat rocks. These stones are called gastroliths, and they sit inside this highly specialized supramuscular section of their stomach, a gizzard, and they basically act like a natural internal blender, just grinding up all those tough exoskeletons of the ants and termites they swallow whole.
Now, the crucial thing about all this anatomy is how it directly informs their behavior. When a pangolin is faced with a natural predator in the wild, let's say a tiger or a hyena shows up, it doesn't run away, and it certainly doesn't try to bite. Its ultimate defense mechanism is to just drop right to the ground and roll up into a tight, hardened, practically impenetrable ball. Those keratin scales have these razor-sharp edges that easily deter any predator trying to take a bite.
But, this brilliantly illustrates their tragic flaw. It's really heartbreaking, because a defense mechanism that is utterly perfect for surviving wild predators makes them completely 100% defenseless against human poachers. When a pangolin rolls into a ball out of fear, a poacher doesn't even need a weapon. They can literally just walk up, casually pick the frightened animal up, toss it in a bag, and walk away.
And that brings us to the stark reality of this illicit trade. Researchers have documented some truly horrific methods used in places like rural Assam in northeast India. Hunters will literally dig them right out of their deep burrows or forcibly smoke them out of tree hollows. Any escaping pangolins are often bludgeoned with machetes. And in some cases, they are literally thrown into boiling water while still alive just to remove their scales faster. And the economic driver behind all this unimaginable suffering? A single pangolin can be sold for the equivalent of 4 months' average income for a rural family. It's a massive payday.
Now, this crisis isn't being driven by local consumption. It's primarily fueled by a massive international demand for their meat and for traditional medicine, particularly in countries like China and Vietnam. People falsely believe these scales, which, again, let's remember, are just made of fingernail material. They believe they can cure a massive range of ailments, from asthma to rheumatism to arthritis. And because of this myth, scales are traded by the absolute thousands on the black market.
But here is what makes this insatiable demand even more absurd. Some of the historical traditional texts themselves actually warn that, quote, pangolin scale is poisonous and should not be used in overdose. So some of the very practitioners relying on these texts are completely ignoring explicit warnings that the scales can literally be toxic. And yet, the lucrative, illegal trade just continues entirely unabated, completely ignoring both modern science and their own traditional warnings.
Compounding this entire tragedy is the pangolin's own biology and its incredibly slow reproductive rate. See, an Indian pangolin has a gestation period of about 65 to 70 days, and they give birth to just a single pup. Just one. That little pup is born with soft scales and hitches a ride on its mother's tail for about 3 months. It stays with her for up to 6 months before finally becoming independent. Because they replace their numbers so incredibly slowly, their wild populations simply cannot bounce back from this massive level of human exploitation.
Now, you might be asking, isn't this illegal? Yes. Legally speaking, the Indian pangolin has the absolute highest levels of protection available. Internationally, commercial trade is completely banned under CITES Appendix I, and domestically, selling them in India is completely illegal under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. But here's the tough reality. Because this trade so often originates in incredibly remote rural communities far away from any real enforcement, actually stopping the poachers on the ground remains extremely difficult.
But look, it's not entirely hopeless. Now, pangolins are notoriously difficult to keep alive in captivity. They're highly sensitive, the stress alone often kills them, and their super specialized diets and weak immune systems make rehabilitation incredibly tough. But there is a glimmer of hope. Specialized centers like the Pangolin Conservation Breeding Center at the Nandankanan Zoological Park in India are actively fighting back. They are studying, preserving, and even breeding these sensitive animals, developing really strict protocols for veterinary care to help safeguard their future.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and I want to leave you with a really critical question. Will we allow this docile, armor-plated marvel to be completely eradicated from the Earth just for its keratin scales before we even fully understand the secrets of its ancient biology? The clock is ticking for the Indian pangolin, guys, and awareness is absolutely the first step toward its salvation. Thanks so much for exploring this vital topic with me today.